Okay, so welcome everyone. You've joined Cando Links to Learning this Tuesday. So glad and so honored that you could be with us. Thank you so much. I am looking forward to today. I got the pleasure of listening to Mckenzie, I believe in 2021. And so she comes with a really, her dynamic personality, good presentation, telling us what's going on with Indigenous cultural tourism here in Alberta. So really looking forward to that. But before we get started, let's just take a moment. Maybe you want to put both feet on the floor. Maybe you want to sit up nice and tall and take a deep breath in, the biggest breath that you've taken all day, and exhale, and just acknowledge this moment, that this moment is divine. There's not going to be another moment like this. We give thanks to Creator. When that sun rose in the east this morning, and that sun is beginning to rise earlier and earlier, so that's exciting. But that was Creator meeting us for another day. And so we just give thanks for all the gifts that have been given to us in this day. One that I can think of right off the bat is the gift of water. Such an amazing medicine. Creator knew that it was a gift, that it was needed for us so that we could survive and thrive as a people. So I hope, with that said, I hope you drank some water today. So there will be an evaluation link sent to you after today's presentation. If you fill that out, your name will be entered into win a draw. I believe we have 2 $100 Visa gift cards. So you got a good chance in winning today. So feel free to lend your voice, fill out that evaluation. We always love to hear the feedback from all of you. And this is what makes these webinars succeed. We need to hear from you. All right. And then if there's any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the chat box. Or we can wait at the end, and then we'll have time for questions and any comments then, because we love to hear, we love to have that dialogue with one another. That's what this virtual community, the circle, is all about. It's learning and it's growing, and it's about listening as well. All right, so today we have Mackenzie Brown, who is a First Nations Cree woman from the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation. She currently resides in Calgary. I'm going to attempt to say the name Mckenzie, and my apologies. Last week we had some Cree speakers. One thing I've learned along the way, for someone who's learning her language, you always try. So Mackenzie, I'm sure, will correct the wrong that I just did in trying to say Calgary, but she lives in Calgary right now. She has a background as a performer, drummer, tourism entrepreneur, philanthropist, and advocate for at-risk youth in the Edmonton area, in addition to her past roles in Indigenous tourism development with both the government of Alberta and Edmonton Tourism. So I feel like we are in really good hands this afternoon. She's going to talk about this program, the Indigenous Cultural Tourism Pathway, which is an innovative grassroots training program designed to empower Indigenous community members to discover and achieve their tourism vision while remaining grounded in their traditional values and local realities. So this program is designed to guide participants towards an understanding of the benefits that Indigenous tourism holds for cultural preservation, environmental safeguarding, social progress, and local economic growth. So you are joining Mackenzie Brown this afternoon, who is the Director of Industry Development, and you're going to learn about the developing community tourism. And there also, I believe, is a guest speaker, Kimmy Houle of the Blackfoot Confederacy. All right, so Mackenzie, go ahead and correct my wrongs. The mic is all yours. We welcome you to our webinar this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So Tante na totamak Kamamat Mackenzie Brown at Tigasan, Nimui Sagahigane Cochinia, Mokins dis Miguach New Weekend. Hi, everybody. My name is Mackenzie. As Michelle had mentioned, I hail from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, and it was exciting. I just met some relatives, which was awesome, which is always great. And yes, I make my home in Mohkinstis now, Calgary, or the Cree way to say it is Otosquenik, which means the bow. But in the Blackfoot word, Mohkinstis, it means the meeting of the bow and the Elbow River. So I'm here on Treaty 7 territory, so I'd like to acknowledge that today. I'm very, very excited to be here with you all today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start to share my screen, but I'm chatting a little bit about community-owned tourism and a wonderful program that we have that we offer through ITA. But if you really like this program, it's a great opportunity for putting a little bit of pressure on some of our other provincial and territorial organizations to try to develop programs such as this as well, because we've had incredible success with this program and it's really exciting to see. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. I'll give a little bit of a brief ahead of time. I apologize, for some reason I cannot get it to go full screen. I was like, I'm a millennial, I should know how to do this, but for some reason it's not coming up that way. So you will just see my many tabs that I have open. But I'm here today talking about the Indigenous Cultural Tourism Pathway program that we have. So as I had mentioned before, my name is Mackenzie and I work with ITA, Indigenous Tourism Alberta, as the Director of Industry Development. I started my tourism journey when I was quite young. I was about 16 years old. And so my mom and I are traditional drummers and singers, and we have a business called Warrior Women. And so we teach, we drum and sing, we educate, we tell stories around a fire, in a classroom, in a teepee, all these different kind of experiences that we do. And so I started, working in the tourism industry unknowing to myself, actually, when I was about 16. I then went and I studied actually child and youth care services at university and spent a little bit of time abroad working with children and families. And then when I came back to Canada, I actually applied for a job with the government of Alberta as their Indigenous tourism developer. And when I started, my boss told me, "Oh, we're so excited to have an Indigenous tourism entrepreneur on our team." And I said, whoa. I'm not an Indigenous tourism entrepreneur. I said, I'm just a drummer and singer and storyteller. And he kind of sat back and he said, okay, well, who do you typically drum and sing for? And I said, oh, a mixed bag, some people are Canadian, some people are from Australia or Germany, or, sometimes it's community. And he said, well, yeah, that is tourism. When you are providing an experience for somebody who is traveling at least 70 kilometers from where they are from, that is considered tourism. And so I meet a lot of Indigenous people who are in the tourism industry, but might not realize it, from artisans to, guiders, to doing plant walks, to drumming and singing, to cultural museums. Tourism is incredibly large and wide and diverse, and it's an industry of industries. So I find myself now here at ITA, and I'm very, very passionate about it because Indigenous tourism gives us the tools as Indigenous people to tell our own stories and to educate. And we've been seeing as well, after some of the grave findings, we've been seeing that tourism is also an approachable way for people to learn about truth and reconciliation in Canada. So you may or may not have heard of Indigenous Tourism Alberta. If you have not, welcome. So Indigenous Tourism Alberta, we are a provincial membership-based society and a not-for-profit. So we have 182 members across Alberta. So those are members that are Indigenous-owned tourism businesses, whether they're in development, they have an idea, or if they're already considered being export ready, which means that they're working with international tourists already. So we help support any and all of our Indigenous tourism operators. And really our mission is to grow and promote authentic and sustainable and culturally rich tourism that showcases Alberta as a premier Indigenous tourism destination. So we are part of a larger organization known as Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, as well as many other provincial and territorial organizations have a Indigenous tourism not-for-profit as well. So we are the one within Alberta. So I wanted to chat a little bit about what is community-owned tourism. So if you guys have any examples, please put it into the chat. So what do you think community-owned tourism is? So put that into the chat if you have any ideas, or maybe you've been to a community-owned tourism place. So let's take a look at this chat. Osoyoos. Yes, so the Osoyoos First Nations does have some community-owned tourism. That is correct. Yes, so Osoyoos can be an example. What else do people think of when they think of what is community-owned tourism, or if they've been to a place that has community-owned tourism? All right, so it's good that you guys are in this, because then I can help explain. Oh, we have a link to Wiki Tours. I haven't heard of them, but yeah, they could definitely be a community-owned tourism initiative. It's in Ontario, that's probably why. That is awesome, thank you so much, Karen. So when we look at community-owned tourism, what that means is it means that First Nations, Métis settlement, or an Indigenous community owns and operates a tourism initiative. This is really cool because then we've seen, amazing examples of community-owned tourism where the money goes into language programs, or goes into employing Indigenous people from their community, or goes into education programs. So within Alberta, we have a couple different community-owned tourism initiatives. One of them is Metis Crossing, which you see here. So Metis Crossing is owned and operated by the Métis Nation of Alberta, and it is a beautiful gathering place. They have Métis trappers tents. They're right along the Smoky Lake River and the Saskatchewan River. And it was actually traditionally river lots. And so the Métis Nation repurchased the land of the river lots, and then created this gathering place. But it is funded through tourism initiatives. They have a paddle into the past experience, a canoe experience, where you learn all about the Métis voyageurs. They have capote making. They have stories of the stars, whispers through the stars. They have a whole culinary program. You can go and they have a full campsite. They also have white bison and white elk, and they're creating a entire like a petting zoo kind of area, right? But from Indigenous species of those lands. So this is a great example of something that is owned and operated by the Métis Nation of Alberta, but also is a gathering place for the Métis Nation. We also have another example, such as Great Eagle Resort and Casino. They're owned and operated by the Satina Nation. It's a place where people come to gather, where conferences happen, where events happen, where concerts happen, alongside the hotel. Yes, Melody, Enoch is another example, River Cree Resort and Casino, and they're actually right now, they're developing an entire culture camp that is geared towards tourism. And that money from those culture camps will then support their own youth culture camps that the nation then hosts. Another example is the Satina Cultural Museum on Satina land. So same with the Great Eagle, they're owned and operated by Satina. Nation. And the money that comes from the museum actually goes to fund the Satina Gunaha language program, so that the kids who are growing up on Satina Nation are learning their language within school. And that's all funded through tourism, which is really amazing. We also have, this, we're seeing this across Canada. Wendake Nation is a great example. So they actually were established in 2006, and they have their own destination marketing organization that promotes Wendake as a tourism destination. They have just like a beautiful area there. They have this gorgeous hotel. They have entire tourism initiatives that bring people to Wendake as a tourism experience. So at ITA, we have entrepreneur workshops. We have workshops to take like sole proprietors or individuals through owning and operating a tourism business. But we realized kind of across Canada, there are no direct initiatives to support communities who want to start community-owned tourism. So that was when we decided to create something that we call our Indigenous Cultural Tourism Pathway program. So this is really a grassroots training program for community tourism development. What I'm going to do is I want to chat a little bit about this program, and then also hopefully plant some seeds for people who are watching the webinar to be able to get involved in community-owned tourism within their own communities as well. So this program is really focused on something that we know of as grassroots tourism. So when you think of the word grassroots, what does that mean to you? Feel free to type it in the chat. What do you think of when you hear the word grassroots? And what does that mean to you in relation to tourism? So feel free to chat that into the chat box. Michelle, I love that. I mean, stories from the land. That's a really good one. What else do people think of? Coming from the community and authentic. Absolutely. Absolutely. When we hear grassroots tourism, that's really what we think, right? Business startups. Absolutely. Local business startups from that community, right? That's really grassroots too. These are all really good comments. So Indigenous peoples are the original storytellers. Actually, in fact, we were the original tour guides, if you think about it, right? When the Europeans came over, we were the ones who showcased our lands to them. Even prior to contact and colonization, we would visit other nations. We were nomadic people who would show one another the lands that we were living on. And so when we look at grassroots tourism, it means our local businesses participating in the tourism economy. It means supporting the growth of the Indigenous tourism businesses. It means community collaboration, right? That what we're sharing is coming from our community. It's what our community wants to share. It also means that we have First Nations, Métis, and Inuit authentic representation. We say nothing about us without us, right? It is always First Nations led and settler supported. That's authenticity. And it means that we have those community level partnerships. And at the end of the day, it is owned and operated by the community. That is what grassroots tourism really is. And the idea that authenticity is at the heart of Indigenous tourism. If we are not sharing our own stories, then it is not authentic. If we have not gotten permission to share those stories, then it is not authentic. If we are not sharing our own personal stories and sharing other people's stories, that's not authentic as either. So there's a lot of cultural protocol and community engagement that really has to happen with grassroots tourism to ensure that authenticity is always at the heart of Indigenous tourism. So when we take this idea of grassroots and authenticity, this is really where the framework for the Pathway program came from. So when we look at what are those key elements for developing grassroots tourism, we look at community ownership, community empowerment, community pride, and then of course, fostering relationships within our communities as well. So I won't make you guys type this into the chat, but if you reflect on your own community, you want to think about how do you see grassroots tourism really fitting into your community that you have? So there's a lot of opportunity for communities to get involved in tourism. We see typically that there's about 4 different types of experiences, but many experiences actually kind of take all 4 and mash them into one. You know, we see nature-based and adventure tourism that communities can really get involved in. Actually, one of the nations that went through the Pathway program, they're currently developing a whole network of ATV trails and hiking trails so that they can have adventure tourism on their nation. We also see cultural and heritage. You know, Metis Crossing is a fantastic example of this, where the entire experiences are revolving around the Metis culture. We also have culinary tourism, which is like my favorite because I'm a foodie and I love learning about Indigenous ingredients, how we prepare food, how we create food, and having an amazing culinary experience. And then, of course, there's educational tourism, which we find falls into every facet of other tourism. So when communities first get involved with thinking about tourism as a potential initiative for them, we always ask them, you know, what are the strengths of your community that could really align with visitors' desires for meaningful experiences? You want to make sure that whatever you develop or whatever ideas you guys have, that people will want to come and attend those as well. So that brings us to our Pathway program. And what our Pathway program is it really guides communities on a journey to grow grassroots tourism, and then eventually open a local tourism office, create a strategy for tourism moving forward. So this program is a 7-week online program. And what happens is we have nations apply for the program, and then we go through the application process. From there, 3 people from each nation are chosen to be a part of a community team. So they're the ones kind of spearheading the Pathway program. So every single week we would meet, we go through different aspects of growing tourism. And then there's, of course, some groundwork that ends up happening. And I'll explain that a little bit more. But we're able to provide a Pathway guide, which is a full PDF, a fillable PDF that actually at the end of the program, once the PDF is filled out, the nation can take that directly to a funder, and it is basically a business proposal for funding as well for communities. They have support from, of course, our Pathway coach and our ITA team. And then they also get a certificate of recognition upon completion, and they're honored at our annual Celebrating Indigenous Tourism Excellency Awards Gala night each year. So the program approach is it's grassroots and community led. We say that it's self-directed, but yet connected, because at the end of the day, a community has to put in the work in order to receive things back from the program, right? So it is self-directed, but then we're connected because every single week we meet up, we have a cohort, we have online coaching that can happen as well. And then the way that the program is built is that at every point in time, you're engaging with your community to make sure that your community's voices are heard, that your community knows what's happening in your tourism initiatives, and that they're informed, empowered, excited, and that they want to become involved with you. So this is kind of an overview of what really ends up happening during our Pathway program. As you can see, we go immediately from like an awareness campaign, you know, the next intake is going to happen. We have the application. From there, that's when we choose the nations based on their applications. And if they're ready, right? Because some nations aren't quite ready for tourism. Some nations are really ready. And so we will always want to set up for success as well in this program. Then we have the delivery of it, of course, which then goes on to the completion and the reporting that follows. So each week we go through something that's called a trail, and you'll start to hear these words, trail, groundwork, path, because the idea of grassroots tourism, we wanted to actually embed that in the actual branding of the program itself too, to be like, we are taking paths to get somewhere, and trails, because everything is grassroots and it comes from the community first, comes from the land. So every week we meet up and we go through something that's called trails. So there's 7 different trails. And the trails mean that they're the topics or the themes that we go through, and they all correlate to different tourism initiatives. Each week, nations have groundwork that they complete. So that's work that they then complete, they meet up with, and there are different activities, assignments, or questions that relate back to each trail and help us to get thinking about things. Every nation also has a sharing circle. So that's the team that comes back together, because it's not just one individual who's going through this. It's typically 3 to 4. They create a team together. And so we call that their sharing circle. And then, of course, we also have a participants page, which is a login protected web page where every single time we have a online coaching session, we'll post that there. It has links, it has resources, it has files as well for all of our participants to access. So in regards to the different trails that we end up going through, there are 7 of them, as I had mentioned. So we go all the way from understanding grassroots tourism to engaging your community, cultural authenticity, resource inventory, product and experience development, marketing and partnerships, and then planning and organization. So these are all of the 7 different key areas that we go through. And as I had mentioned, each trail has groundwork that pertains to that trail. Each trail comes with an online coaching session that we do live, and then it has coaching afterwards if the nations might need it. I put this in here because when we look at tourism, there's actually a little bit of a step process. You know, in order to host visitors, for example, you have to be something that's called visitor ready, which means that you have your licenses, your permits up to date, all those different things. And so what we have done with this program is we take these different business levels that we see in tourism, we kind of break them down for the community and then put them into the 7 different trails, so that when a community goes through these trails, they're actually slowly developing their Indigenous tourism businesses. So again, this is just a little bit more in terms of the different paths that we end up taking, the different trails. I had mentioned, you know, the groundwork examples. There's a ton of different groundwork examples that are in the participant guide when somebody's going through the pathway program. So this is an example of the groundwork is envisioning authentic experiences. So brainstorm ideas for tourism experiences in your community. For tourism experiences your community could potentially offer that might align with the guiding principles for cultural authenticity. So you can see this was a part of a cultural authenticity trail. And so the community works together to really lay out these different things that then get their mind thinking to their tourism plans. You know, we also have raising awareness. Brainstorm any cultural protocols or cultural do's and don'ts from your communities that you would want visitors to be aware of, and compile a list of them as well. or list 2 to 3 aspects of your culture you feel would be important for visitors to learn about. So you can see that when we start creating these little activities, they then will all compound into experience development, which then compounds into marketing and partnerships. So we know that the program ends up coming to completion when groundwork is completed. Session attendance as well is really important. And we have there's a constant documentation of work. So because the participant guide that we offer is fillable PDF, means that somebody can always be in there working on things. We don't check the groundwork each week. As I had mentioned, it is self-directed but connected. So the work that you put in is the work that ultimately a community will get out. And some of the groundwork does require a bit of extra time. For example, the first trail that we go through is community engagement. Well, community engagement typically won't happen within the 7 weeks of the program that we're doing. So we do know that some of the groundwork does take a little bit more time. And then, of course, we always try to provide some more resources to help set a community up for success. So they have their Grassroots sharing circle. We also have a Pathway Facebook group. They're able to access additional coaching hours and reach out to the Pathway coach at any time. Within the participant guide as well, there are interactive videos and examples of, case examples from other communities who have developed a good vision mission, a vision statement, for example, or, developed unique experiences. That's all included within the participant guide as well. So overall, that is the whole Pathway program. It's been exciting because we've now done this program with 10 nations across Alberta, and we've had incredible success. Every single nation that has gone through this program are currently working on their tourism plans. Some of them are further than others, of course, but they've all taken some kind of initiative to move forward and develop tourism within their community, which is so, so exciting. So I just wanted to check because I actually am missing one of my guest speakers, but that is okay because I can also speak a little bit to, yes, she's not here, unfortunately, which is okay. She may have gotten tied up, but the Blackfoot Confederacy has actually gone through this program as well. So we've currently had all 3 nations that are on the Canadian side go through the program. So we've had Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations. An exciting thing that they're doing now is they're actually coming together and creating a Blackfoot Confederacy tourism initiative that is all Blackfoot owned and operated. So they brought in all of their Blackfoot tourism operators. They're creating a tourism corridor with a map, with an app, and with they're also trying to work with cross-border as well, because Mckenzie Piikani, who's a part of the Blackfoot Confederacy, when the colonial lines of the borders came, they actually got separated down in the States. So this is a very interesting and unique challenge because we're bringing together the entire Confederacy to see what a tourism corridor could look like, as well as something that is across the borders. So, we've seen examples like the Mohawk over in the East Coast where they have control over a border. So that's something that the Blackfoot Confederacy is going to be looking into as well to see how can we work with that. Some other examples is Enoch Cree Nation has gone through a similar program to this, a community tourism readiness, and they're moving forward with a ton of initiatives. If you were able to attend the Enoch Night Market or the Enoch Christmas Market, that really came from came from community tourism initiatives as well. We see Eden Valley Bears Paw. They went through this tourism program, and they're actually currently in construction for a community center there, where they're hoping to have tourism initiatives come out of that as well. Swan River has gone through this program, and they're moving forward right now with a second community engagement, as well as Fort McMurray Métis, Fort Mackay Métis. Fort McMurray Métis is actually currently building a $15 million Métis cultural center in Fort McMurray that is going to be completely owned and operated by the Métis Nation, and will have community tourism initiatives and experiences come out of it. So it's a really exciting thing to see, right? Is communities taking advantage and telling their own story and utilizing the profits to have social and economic reconciliation. It's something that I really love to see. So that does bring me to the end of my presentation, and I do have time for questions, and I would love to answer any questions, but thank you all so much. Thank you for listening to me today.
Ah, wonderful, Mackenzie. Round of applause for Mackenzie. I really, really appreciate how at the beginning, when you were talking about authenticity, you actually laid out what it was and what it is not. And so I really appreciated that piece. I feel like that this program is innovative in itself, and it's empowering, communities and First Nations. It sounds like a really great program. I especially love that mentorship. I think mentorship is really integral and key, in our organizations and in our communities. So I love to hear about that. So thanks so much for sharing. And we can just hear your passion as you share about this. So it's there. We're on board with you. So does anyone have any comments or questions? So there's one in the chat box. I love this. How did you get into tourism? And she wants to get into something like this, Indigenous owned. Love that.
I love that. I love that. So, you know what? I became involved in tourism, as I had mentioned, not really knowing that I was involved in tourism. But the beautiful thing is, to get involved in tourism, the first step is to just have an idea, right? If you're in Alberta, I highly recommend applying for our membership. We do have free membership right now. And if you have just an idea, we have workshops. We have our entrepreneur workshop that we do as well, which is a one-day training on how to develop a tourism business. So we're actually going to be doing a provincial-wide virtual version of that workshop in April. So if you're interested in getting involved, Melody, please keep up to date with us through our newsletter. So you can just head to our website, sign up for our newsletter, or sign up for our membership. You don't have to have an existing business to be a member. All you need to have is just an idea.
That's great. So we have a question from Grace. Do you have a guide for individual operators or a program for individual operators?
Yes. So again, I highly recommend our Indigenous Tourism Entrepreneur Workshop. With that workshop, I love this workshop, actually. I was like looking around to see if I had it by me, but we mail out an entire workshop guide for people as well that has, again, activities, some links to fantastic videos, case studies, to really help you take an idea and build it into an actual business as well. So I'll be sure to grab that link and to post it into here for everybody.
Sweet. So it sounds like she just answered your question, Melody. She's going to put in the website, put the link in the chat box. Here's another comment and then a question. Very good speech. And how could we integrate to heritage and enhancement the initiative of sustainable development against climate changes?
Oh, I love that. I love that, because one of the things that we talk about within the Pathway program is environmental sustainability. You know, when we look at who are the most sustainable cultures around the world, it is Indigenous communities. And so for us to be able to create tourism in a sustainable way, you know, we have some amazing examples of communities that are doing sustainable tourism. For example, well, Metis Crossing, they've gone completely solar at Metis Crossing, and with their reintroduction of white bison, of white elk, of bison, of elk, they're reintroducing original Indigenous species back to the land. And that's very intentional, actually. That is to help with environmental sustainability. They're also creating they are creating and have planted original Indigenous species to reintroduce them back to the land as well. We have a really awesome example of tourism, William Singer and Harley Bastian. They are both from the Blackfoot Confederacy, and both of their Indigenous tourism businesses are completely environmentally sustainable. For example, William has an entire experience where he takes people out and they weed out invasive plants and they repopulate Indigenous plants and Indigenous medicines. And then Harley from Buffalo Rock Teepee Camp, he does an annual fish rescue where he'll take visitors to the river, and any fish that gets stuck due to the river changing, you know, then they'll put them back into the water, and every year he saves thousands of fish. So we're seeing some really cool examples of how we can, you know, fight against climate changes and have sustainable development.
Yeah, that was a really great question. And a really great answer. All right, so this is a comment from Zen, who we also call Ken, who comes here every week. That cataloging of lessons learned in the variety of tourism initiatives from the case studies sounds invaluable. And just as commenting on the presentation, it was inspiring. And so he says, thank you. And there in the chat box also is those links. So make sure you copy and paste them, make note of them. Really good information right here, really good support, really good way, right? If you're even just thinking about it, this is a good connecting point right here. Just to get started, ask those questions, take in a webinar like this one, but go a step further. So this is awesome. So any other questions or comments? All right. Well, you gave us lots to think about. You gave us lots to plan for our summer and winters. There's so much here in our province that's going on, so many pieces that we can connect with, but then also to think about our own nations and our organizations and how we can tap into this industry as well. So thank you so much, Mckenzie, for your time. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We really honor your presence here. I know it's this virtual community here, but it's an opportunity to learn and to be inspired and to walk away with some knowledge that perhaps we didn't have 45 minutes ago. So thank you so much. Before we go, may you just walk in a way that health, happiness, healing, and that your footsteps will help you to walk in ease wherever you go. So thank you so much for being here. Have a good rest of the afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, I just got this question.
Yeah.
Sorry, so the 7-week training, can anybody apply? So the 7-week training is open for Indigenous communities. So any Indigenous community within Alberta can apply for the program, but then our entrepreneurship workshops are open to anybody. So you can sign up for those as well. And again, keep up to date on our website, because whenever the workshops are going to be planned for, we will be posting that on our website.
Ooh, another question. When is the next workshop?
Ooh, so actually we have So we do have a workshop that's happening tomorrow, and it's on becoming visitor ready. So I had just popped into the chat. We had a workshop on becoming in development and developing an Indigenous tourism business. And this is kind of that next step. So we actually do have it coming up tomorrow. So what I'll do here quickly is I'll gather that link for everybody on a workshop that's happening tomorrow. We always have workshops that are happening at ITA. Ooh, I'm gonna grab it here.
So the best way to get in on that is to go to your website and subscribe to their email list, and then you'll be in the know.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so she's just gonna post
There we
that.
go.
There you go.
So that's the link to you can use and copy that link and see you tomorrow, or you can register. So that's going to be happening tomorrow from 12:30 till from 10:30 till 12 tomorrow morning.
Ooh, awesome. So if you're not busy, that's a good opportunity. All right. I love the last minute questions. Any last minute questions before we officially carry on with our day?
For the workshop tomorrow, which time zone is that?
That will be MST, so Mountain Standard Time.
10:30 Mountain Time.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a good rest of the day. Peace.